Welcome to the Balance Consciousness Podcast, an assortment of enlightening conversations that inspire balance in your wellness of the mind, body, heart, and spirit. I'm your host, Jessica Taylor, and my intention is that with each episode, we open a channel of communication within our energetic systems, increasing our critical thinking, awareness, authenticity, sovereignty, and empowerment. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's dig in. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Balance Consciousness Podcast. This is episode 8, and I am so excited to be here with Cairo Moon, who is a dear, dear friend. She is a psychic medium who, from a very young age, remembered recent past lives. She does general readings, soul origin readings. She specifically really specializes in past life work. And we're going to be talking a lot today about tapping into our own intuitive abilities because we all have them. And I also want to say before Cairo starts telling us her story that we're really excited to announce that she and I are going to start to do some energy check-in chats. We're planning on doing this every solstice and equinox. We tend to have these talks just regardless. And we realized, people need to be hearing these talks. So we're really looking forward to doing that. So you can look forward to our first one, which will be around the winter solstice. So welcoming to Cairo. Yes, and those of you who are watching on YouTube, you might see the adorable puppy Benny every now and then. But Cairo, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I've actually never done a podcast before, and I'm really excited, especially to be on yours. So thank you for having me.
Of course. It's really, really special. And also, I should have mentioned this for those of you who have mentioned how much you love our opening music theme, if I can get words out. Our opening song is actually Cairo's voice. So she's also an incredibly talented singer and musician, among many other things. So yeah, you forgot about that, didn't you?
I really did.
That's awesome. So Cairo, I would love to just start speaking about your story. We were already chatting a little bit before I hit record, and it always turns into like, wait, we need to stop because people need to hear this. Because what I love about your story is how it can so closely connect to pretty much any listener in the sense of finding those moments of self-doubt and then finding those moments of empowerment. So you can start at the very beginning if you like, share with, whatever you're comfortable with, but tell us how you discovered you were a psychic medium. How did you discover these memories of past lives, et cetera, et cetera?
So it might come as a surprise to people. I was born with abilities and shut them off at a very early age. So I did not think or know that I was a psychic. Looking back, there were so many little ways that I was still connecting. And I kind of, not to use a trigger word, but gaslit myself into thinking that I wasn't a psychic. So it took me a really long time to kind of embrace that. Sorry. Off to a bad start.
Puppy break.
So one of the things, when I was born, I was named directly after my grandmother. Her name was Sarah. My birth name is Sarah. And we lived together for about 9 months, and she was terminally ill when I was born, and we were inseparable. She had passed when I was 9 months, and from about 9 months to 3 or 4 years, I would talk to her. I would give my mother messages from her. My mother would sit outside of she recorded me, sit outside of my bedroom and videotape me. And I would be talking to my grandmother saying, Gamma, stop tickling me, Gamma this, and would just know things about her that my mom was like, what? And so I knew that growing up. My mom told that story to everybody. She always reminded me because at a certain age I had forgotten. And there was always like a lot of connections that were there. But around the time I was about I want to say 9 or 10, I started to kind of shut it off. I kind of forgot about all those things when I was younger. And I also realized it wasn't normal. So there was a lot of ways that I would try and like ask my friends, you're making friends, you're having sleepovers. I would try and ask them like, oh, hey, does this happen to you? Or have you ever seen this? And it was like little things. And the friends that I had would be like, no. And it would be really, really weird going to people's houses. And like looking back, I thought it was so normal, but I would see like, and in my family, this was kind of normal. My family is very open, parents always believed in past incarnations, which I'm so grateful for. But I would be at sleepovers and see either someone's grandma who had passed away and try to bring that up in a sleepover. And that's weird. And people don't want to hear that. And you become the weird girl, which is fine. I'm okay with it. But I think around that time, I just started to be like, you're crazy. This isn't real. Like, this isn't normal. Cause at that point, I thought everyone did it. And then literally from about 9 to like, I started reopening it up around 20, I want to say 2021. But until then, I did not know. It felt like the connection was lost. The only thing that really, really kind of was constant was this memory of my past incarnation, my most recent one. It's the one that I was born remembering. It's the one that needed the most healing. And that was really my key into all of this. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I would be here. It was something that I felt so crazy for, but it was something that was so undeniable and so real and so painful that it felt like a curse at the time. And now I know it was a gift. And even then, even still connecting so much with that lifetime, remembering and looking back now, connecting with my grandmother, connecting with souls from her life. But in my head, I thought I was making it all up, honestly. Like somehow, even though it was real and it was tactical and I felt it and I remembered, I I remember asking myself, are you crazy? Are you schizophrenic? And I remember asking myself, are you possessed by somebody who lived this life? Like, I don't understand. And I didn't know who to ask. Nobody really talked about it growing up. This is a recent thing that I love that people are being so open about it because it was so isolating. And it came to about, it's really ironic, but I came out as a lesbian and at 21, and something about opening that part of myself and accepting that part of myself, the past life, like energy came up and these abilities started to awaken. And it almost feels like I accepted one part of myself and the floodgates opened. And it was like, well, there's other parts that you need to accept too. And from then on, I like honestly couldn't hold anything back, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, this is beautiful because even with the support that you had from your family, even if they didn't fully understand at the time, having support of your family is really great. The fact that they were, open and loving, but you can see that even with that, it comes down to your own self-acceptance. And anyone who's listened to these episodes or who knows my work, everything comes down to self-love. So I just love that that's always the answer, that, you felt in times it seems like out of control, right? Because you had no idea what was going on. It must have felt at times like it was taking over your body. And I know when we've spoken in the past, it's not like you have a choice necessarily when you do open these, portals, if you will, and these channels of communication. You don't really have a choice of when a message comes in.
No.
And anyone who already follows you on social media can, see a lot of your like comical approaches to it, which I love, just in the middle of the night. Or I know you've mentioned like, right when you're getting ready to go to sleep is normally a very active time. Like, do you want to share any of those things just about how, this gift, which truly is a gift, has affected your day-to-day life?
Yes. So looking, and this is one of those things where I have a few stories that have happened this week that I'd love to tell.
Mm.
But looking back, if I really think about it, there are so many times in my daily life that spirits were trying to communicate with me that I would see things and be like, you didn't see anything. And I don't know that I really ever turned it off. I think I just dulled it because I don't know if you can ever really fully turn it off. I think you can just kind of dull it to a point where you can pretend that it's not happening. But I had this really funny experience the other day where a friend and I went for coffee, and I love thrift stores. I love antique stores, but I haven't been in one in a while just because I didn't live by one. So we went in this antique store, and as soon as we walked in, and I kind of maybe thought that this could be a thing because objects hold energy, even if it's not souls and like spirits attached to it, there's so much energy. So we walk in and it almost felt like the energy really pushed me back. And I was like overwhelmed with this wave to the point where it made me dizzy. And I remember looking at my friend and being like, this is wild. And then as soon as I walk in and I'm just trying to look, we're just shopping, we're having a good day, girl talk. And luckily, my friends are very open to allowing me to talk about this because it was something I was so insecure about for a while because it felt like it's such a big part of my life. And it felt like it was really all I had to share when everybody would say what's new. I'm like, well, there was this spirit encounter and this and this. And it felt like that was all I could talk about. But it really does take up so much of my day to day in my life, which I'm grateful for. So she understood because I've told her about things in the past, like, okay, there's a lot of energy, I'm sure I can imagine. And then attached to this little drink tray was this older man who had passed away of lung cancer. So as I'm walking through, I'm starting to like see this man show himself in my third eye, seeing him in the physical, and then I start to feel like pain in my chest, and I start to feel like I need to cough, and like all of this really uncomfortable, like I've got stuff stuck in my throat. And I understand that he's trying to show me something with his lungs, something with his throat for whatever, showing me how he passed. And then it's apparent that he doesn't realize that he's passed and is wondering, like he's stuck in this trauma loop. He's still feeling like the physical pain of how he had passed. And so, while I'm trying to have this nice day with my friend, I'm also like, do you need help crossing over? Like trying to like also connect to his energy to help explain that he has passed away. And then we turn another corner and there was a little girl attached to this like bust looking thing that I guess in back in the day in her home was like placed next to a cookie jar, and that's why there's a lot of energy attached. So it's like you're walking through this place and there's just it's like so many things popping out at you that it's really, really hard to be in the moment. And then getting out of there, I remember I did the energy bath that we all know so well because it's not even that it's negative, it's just overwhelming. And it's little things like that. And listen, I go through days or moments of my day where I'm not having a spiritual connection and I'm having a relatively normal day. And then you kind of can't control when they come up and when they don't. And boundaries are so important. So I try and put boundaries up, but there are moments where you kind of let the boundaries down. And there are also moments where you want to connect. I have days where I'm like, I just want to go for a walk and communicate with spirit. I don't even want to talk to people today. And I don't know if that's normal, but like you go in and out. It's a whole world. There's also, yes, you are most open when you are in this most relaxed state. So it's very, very common for nighttime, specifically right before you fall asleep, to have these visions for spirits to come to you. And I will literally be laying there, or I'll be woken up at 3 a.m. 3 to 4 a.m. is very, very active for spirit. And especially if a spirit's been trying to communicate with me for a client or myself, and I haven't been paying attention because my boundaries have been up maybe a little too much. Where I will literally hear somebody scream in my ear to wake me up and then either deliver an image or a thought or a feeling. And I have note paper next to my bed and I'll just write it down and like kind of try and communicate tomorrow and see what's up. But it's really, really funny because I've woken my wife up a couple of times by her being like, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, it's nothing. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's just another Tuesday,
Just another, don't even worry about it. Yeah.
So so it's what I find interesting. I have so many things to say after that. First of all, I think so far the big message is it's important for you to have tools, just like all of us, even if you don't, identify as a highly sensitive person or an empath or someone who has abilities, even though we're going to talk today about the fact that you do.
Yes.
We all need grounding and clearing and things like that. These are things that I talk about very regularly. So, when you say an energy bath, people who don't, understand that, we all might have like different viewpoints. So what is your version of an energy bath?
So this is actually something I learned getting Reiki attuned with you. For those of you who don't know, I have been Reiki attuned with Jess. So you don't realize how many energies you pick up throughout the day. Our auras, our energy is like sponges, and energy feels energy. So it could be bad, it could be good, but if it's not yours, it can be really draining and exhausting, especially if you work a job where you are seeing many people throughout the day. It's draining. So an energy bath is kind of just releasing any energy that isn't yours good or bad, sending it back to source to be recycled for the highest good and sent back to its owner with loving kindness. That's always kind of a mantra in one way or another that I like to say. But I like the physical aspect that's added to an energy bath where you are swiping your right hand across your body, your left hand across your body, your right hand across your body, and then you're going to swipe your arms kind of in the same way of left swipes your right arm, right swipes your left arm, and then one more time because it's done in threes, your left swipes your right arm. And then sometimes I like to swoop around the head because I find that the crown of the head is very overactive with energy.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So in Reiki terms, everyone, what she just described with the swipe, 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 swipe is called Kenyoku. And it's a beautiful life hack, honestly. And I know that, Sarah and I, Cairo and I have joked a lot about, when we're working one-on-one with lots of people that in the middle of the day on a bathroom break or like jumping into the back room, we'll do a quick Kenyoku really quick and just, whoo, okay, go. And a lot of this, I'll say too, is just about intention, right? And something I'll add on top of that is not trying too hard to clear energy either. I think that I feel like you and I have had conversations about this a lot in the past, where if we're trying too hard to make something happen energetically, then we're not trusting in our intuition or trusting in the energy itself that it's being done. And so the more we try, the more resistance can actually come if we're coming at it from almost like an anxious or desperate energy, like, get this stuff off of me. You know what I mean? And I say this too with my coaching clients, when it's not even about energy, if we're ever trying to force a solution in work or in a relationship or something like that, and we're just met with resistance is a sign for us to go, wait, let's come back to the trust, which I think is just going to be a really big theme of this conversation today, of just trusting in ourselves, trusting in our intuition, and trusting that we're on the journey we're supposed to be on. That doesn't mean that we sit back, we submit, right? We're still going to take inspired action as we come. But if we are, going at it with this energy, and I say that just because that's come up in a lot of conversations, in the past with clients and friends and loved ones and things like that. And especially those who are trying to tap into these intuitive abilities that they have, and they're going to manifest and show themselves in so many different ways, which I think I'd like to get to next. When we're trying to do that, just really being able to, like you said, be in that relaxed state and really be in that state of receptivity so that we actually can, receive messages in the way that we're going to, right? So, so far you have told us so thoroughly that you have a lot of abilities. We all have a lot of abilities, right?
Yes.
But
Yes, absolutely.
and I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this are like, yeah, I have abilities too. And I know 17 others, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing about it is that we're all such unique individuals. And I truly believe that the abilities that start to surface are the ones that we can connect to the easiest, the ones that, speak to us the most, right? So for me, and I know you know this, my biggest ability right from square one has always been clairsentience. It's always been feeling in my body, deep, deep empathic connections to people when they walk in a room, feeling their emotions, feeling quite literally taking on their injuries when I was, their massage therapist or their Pilates instructor, things like that. Talk about thinking I'm going crazy, right? And I will never forget when I was in massage school, I must have been maybe 20 years old at the time. And I was doing a student clinic, kind of observed session with a man who had just been through a very severe car accident. And I did the entire session just on his neck and shoulders. We needed that. And it was a myofascial release session. So it was like holding him in a certain position for like 20 minutes. Lots of patience, right? And I will never forget, I come out of that And I leave the room and my teacher's out in the hallway and was like, how'd it go? And I was like, it's great. And he was like, what's up with your hands? And I bring my hands up and they're locked up like this. And I didn't even realize. And I was like, and he could sense my fear, but he didn't freak out because he understood. And he just grabbed my hands and he was like, let's walk to the bathroom. We walked to the bathroom and I'm washing my hands. And he starts to immediately teach me cleansing techniques. And this is before I was even Reiki level 1 attuned. It's kind of interesting because literally that next semester I started my Reiki journey. But it was quite literally me taking on what this man had gone through. Because then sure enough, he comes out, he goes, oh my gosh, I can turn my head. And he hadn't been able to turn his head in months. So that's what I have always kind of like identified with, but also had moments of shutting out. And of course it makes sense. I was a dancer. I was a fitness professional. I was a massage therapist. Everything was really about the body to me. I felt deeply in my emotions. So all that made sense, right? It wasn't until I started to trust in the knowings, the intuitive hits, the channelings, that was like a whole other world. And then for you, you're talking about quite literally hearing voices, quite literally seeing spirits, which a lot of humans would have a hard time handling in the beginning. And that's a lot of stimulation and overload, right? I know I've spoken with other clairaudient, specifically, people who have the ability to hear messages, who they've told me, like, careful what you wish for, right? Because you're in a relaxing bath and then like, nope, you don't have any privacy.
Oh my God. Yeah. I've had spirits that I know and that I haven't, that have been coming to me for clients. And for some reason, like they don't see the physical body like you do. Like they don't have like that human look at it anymore. And every time I'd be naked and getting into the shower or the bath would be when it's because I'm relaxed. I don't know. They would present. And I remember there was this one woman actually from my most recent incarnation, a soul that I knew. She comes forward often. And I was getting into the bath, literally naked, stepping into the bath. And I turn around and she's right behind me. And I kind of like screamed because it kind of comes out of nowhere. And I remember her literally just calmly sitting there and said to me, nothing weird. What do you mean nothing weird? And like I got desensitized to it quickly, but like, yeah, you can't, I would never give it away. And sometimes, some days it's lighter and easier than others, but there are some times where I'm like, oh, this is a whole nother layer to a day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, again, like the sensitivities, like, again, I needed to have just those physical sensations for decades before I ultimately allowed myself to trust in the fact that I'm receiving channeled message as well, or I have some claircognizance of really inner knowings, things like that. So, and you know what? And you've helped me a lot with that as we've continued to work. I remember, just a little side story, guys, as Cairo was getting attuned in Reiki, she was working on either myself or her classmates for, practice. And she continued to get messages specifically about past lives. And this was before she said she was a past life reader. And I remember just intuitively going, that's the work you're going to go into, is past life regression type work. But I think I even said, I was like, it's not going to be past life regression, though. It's going to be something very, very different. It's going to be really unique. And then I want to say, like not even 6 months later, you're starting to market past life readings.
Happened fast. And I felt like people ask me how I got into this. And I'm like, I literally fell into it. And I remember doubting myself even after you said it in Reiki attunement. And literally, I remember my friend Anna, I was doing a practice session on her. And she's really tapped into her abilities lately. And I love seeing it. I love seeing everybody tapping into their abilities. And I remember her saying, you should focus on past lives and how past life trauma gets stored in the body, because she had a little bit as well. And it was like the two of you saying that, I was like, I guess this is it. And it's something in me just clicked. And I was like, I think all of this was leading up to that, because I literally used to feel like remembering this past incarnation was a curse. It felt really painful at times. And also remembering people that you love that are no longer on this earth was so painful and like hard at a young age when you don't fully understand it. Now I obviously realize they haven't gone anywhere. They're all here, they're all with you at all times. But like being able to go through that, I had to do that to be able to help other people through that. Even if you don't remember, you don't realize how much it affects you in this life. And
Mhm.
I also want to say that like there are some psychics that don't think that everybody has abilities and everybody can tap in. I am one of those psychics that deeply believes everybody has this ability. It might manifest in different ways, but if you feel called to tap in, you have the full ability, sensitivities to do that, but you kind of have to allow yourself and start opening it up. It's a choice and it isn't, I guess, if that makes sense. And a lot of people channel every day through conversations with people when they just know what to say, when they can just tell how somebody's feeling and they don't realize that they're doing it. And the more you tap in, the more you realize that you use your psychic abilities every day, you know, but
Mhm.
you kind of don't realize that you're doing that.
Well, it's such a beautiful way that you're saying that, because I think a lot of people who just want so deeply to tap in, but maybe they don't know how, or maybe they have kind of a restricted and limited image of what that looks like. When my abilities unlock, it will look like this. And then here I go watching Cairo's content. All of her stuff is so obvious. She literally has deities coming down and speaking to her. Why can't I have that? Right.
What's
So
always
yeah. So there's like a actually, before I go on to that question, let's talk about how, even though, because I already know this about you, even though you can get quite obvious messages literally said to you still have moments of doubting yourself,
oh my God, all the
right?
time. I go in and out of like, it's so funny. And my wife gets so mad at me because obviously, when I was awakening these abilities, I was still struggling with that self doubt of telling myself for, I mean, what was it? It was like at least 10, 12 years that like, you're crazy. This is in your head. You don't have these abilities. And it's really hard to just turn that off and be like, this is real and I'm wonderful at this and this is whatever. Like you can't just jump from one extreme to the other. And it's
Mhm.
also just hard because a lot of times it's not as physical as people think. And this is something that I heard a psychic say as I was awakening my abilities. And it helped me so much because people think, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Ghost Whisper, but people think that mediums literally see, and I don't know if some do, I don't, literally see somebody like I'm talking to you, sit there and have a conversation. It's not like that. It's not that physical. You will see things like in your actual eyes standing there, but they don't stick around. It a spirit, in order to show in the physical, has to lower their vibration and the person seeing them has to raise their vibration. So you're literally meeting in the middle energetically because
Mm.
honestly, spirits that aren't incarnated on earth, souls, angels, whatever you want to call them, have a higher frequency, a higher dimension. So it's a lot for them to manifest in the physical. So a lot of times you will see something, and that's how you'll know somebody is trying to get your attention. And then if you choose to connect, they fill everything in your third eye, or they'll start communicating with you through clairaudience, which is literally hearing them speak. So
Mhm.
it's not as obvious all the time and as physical as people make it out to be. And I remember that standing in the way of me really embracing these abilities for the longest time because I thought it was like Ghost Whisper. I'm like, well, I see them, but they don't stick around. And like, it's not that obvious. And then hearing other psychics talk about how a lot of it is done in the third eye, a lot of it is not like what you've seen on TV. It's different. And they'll give you information in different ways using different clairs. So, like, hearing that really helped me be like, oh my God, okay, I do have this. It's just going to take you understanding how you specifically like receive messages more so than how you see it done on TV, if that makes sense. On like,
Yes.
you know,
Well,
drama.
yeah, no, as I'm hearing you talk about this, I think of the show Wednesday.
Yes.
For those of you who haven't seen it, when it's, kind of a spinoff on Wednesday Addams from the Addams family, and she gets these like clairvoyant, strong projected thought processes. But every time she gets one, it's this really dramatic where she like throws her head back, looks
Yeah.
up at the ceiling, and then she comes down. And
Yeah.
it's like, no.
Also not like a That's So Raven flashback because that's something that we would joke about all the time when like I it's so funny because one of the first times a spirit that wasn't my family came to me when I was really opening this up. Well, actually one was my wife's family. A lot of her family would come to me, but now they're my family. So it was like an extension. But we were actually visiting a friend in New York. We were sitting in her apartment and she had lost her mother. So we were sitting there, and this is the first time it was somebody I didn't fully know. And her mother was coming forward, and they said it was funny because I just got really quiet and started to like go in on myself, and I get twitchy. It's weird. Like you start to feel energy, and like I'm getting better at it, but you will start to like not be able to sit still, but also like kind of like move away from the rest of the world. And I remember they were like, we thought you were mad at us, like, because you just got really quiet and went into the couch. And I was like, no, I was trying to figure out what it is she was trying to show me. And also trying to adjust to there's something happening over here with all these people that I'm communicating with. And then there's a spirit trying to communicate with me. And it's so funny because one of our friends was like, I thought you would like, I would see you see a spirit. Like I thought you would do the whole like that's so Raven thing. And I was like, no, it's not like that. It's like, you know, you really can't tell sometimes. It's very subtle. So it's just funny how there's like all of these ideas that people have about what it has to be. And a lot of times it's different.
Well, and like many things in this world, you know, media, TV, movies will program us to, you know, think of it being a certain way. And let's face it, you know, unless you were someone like you who, you know, from birth pretty much knew that they had abilities, we were all watching shows like that or movies like that and going like, oh, this is like a fantasy show, or, you know, it's like something that would never actually happen in real life. And of course, they dramatize it to make
Yeah.
us believe that more and more and more. So that's a fact that kind of shows our age difference too. You bringing up that show because I'm like, yeah, I remember Raven Simone, right? I remember that. But no, this is so great. So before we get into, you know, maybe some like intuitive tools or just different ways that we can see our intuition play out when we're really trusting ourselves, I want to know, are there any other things that you on your journey have hit in terms of roadblocks, or, you know, we already said that you've doubted yourself in the past, right? Are there other things kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum where it's like you've gotten so used to speaking to spirit or to other, you know, deities or things like that, that you've had a hard time kind of coming back to yourself?
Yes. It's a really hard to sometimes balance both worlds, and it's really hard to stay grounded. A lot of times I'm very much connected to the spiritual world where I have a hard time like grounding into living the 3D experience, or you know, not 3D but like the physical experience.
Sure.
There balance, because I would spend a lot of time meditating, communicating for clients, and it would be really draining because I love doing it, so I want to do it. But you need boundaries because communicating with spirits and giving your energy in that way and connecting, it takes a lot of your energy. And then a lot of times I wouldn't have energy things in my day to day that I want to do, and I saw it reflecting in some of my friendships and making plans and things like that. And it was kind of like, yes, there is this world that I love connecting to and I love helping people, but there's also this world that I chose to come down and incarnate and experience and live. And there has to be this balance of both. It can't just be one or the other. So I'm learning that balance now. But definitely the balance and not like over exhausting yourself.
Sure, sure. Have you ever had moments where you feel like let me start over. Do you ever have instances where you want to make a decision about something,
Yes.
but yes, but you still aren't relying on your own intuition? You're always tapping in with spirit?
You mean a codependent relationship with spirit and your spirit guides? Immediately, yes. I very much am like this with my grandmother. So again, she's the only spirit I never turned off my abilities with looking back. Like I always knew that she was there. I would always kind of like feel her, communicate with her in one way or another. She always sent me music for answers. So I would always kind of know like, oh, this, I just knew it was from her. So especially when I was awakening these abilities, she was the only spirit that I trusted, that I knew. So she was really my also key into trusting myself and trusting other spirits. Like she would have to say they were okay. I'd be like, all right, I'll communicate with them, whatever.
Mm.
But I would go to her every time I was anxious about something or every time I was self-doubtful, and it became reliant, and she cut me off. Like she said, I will not answer. I would try and ask questions and I would not feel her there. Or she wouldn't answer or give me whatever kind of validation I needed. And I knew it was out of love. And like when I finally communicated with her again, it was kind of, I got the sense that she was telling me like, you're cut off. If you're going to depend on it, like you need to trust yourself. You're cut off. And then I had another psychic friend kind of validate that for me, that that's what was happening. So
Mm. See, this is really beautiful to hear because, like you said, you chose to come down in a human incarnation. You're a human just like the rest of us, right? And, it's like I tell my clients of all kinds, whoever sees me, like, don't ever put me on a pedestal. Don't ever
no,
say that I fix you, those kind of things, because we are human and we're vulnerable. And what I love about this is that even though it's a totally other side of the spectrum where you are becoming reliant on spirit, look at how many humans are becoming reliant on the external regardless, right?
yeah,
Relationship wise, right?
yeah,
Can we learn to love ourselves, trust ourselves, or are we only going to feel fulfilled when we feel the love and the validation from others? If we're constantly seeking that external validation, whether it's spirit, whether, whatever,
society, whatever.
it's just us dismissing ourselves and really coming out of ourselves rather than going inward and being able to find that inner child and nurture and love and, do the things that we really need to do that will help us to develop the trust in our intuition. Um, I just saw that as such a clear parallel to whether it's spirit or 3D. The cool thing is that with spirit, you at least know that you have some unlimited power in terms of patience, love, kindness, things like that. Where humans are going to lack that a little bit more, but we can
Yeah.
see it. Yeah, we can see it as a parallel though. And I just love, again, it's like I have no problem with it always being a broken record, and everything I talk about, it comes down to your relationship with yourself,
Oh,
just
absolutely.
always.
And your relationship with yourself is your relationship with other people is a direct reflection of your relationship with yourself. I've
Mhm.
seen it with myself in the past. I've also seen it with clients. Like if you are feeling a lack in relationships and wondering why you're not clicking with somebody romantically, why it's always like two steps forward, one step back, whatever it is. And it's because there's a love that you're searching for in this person that you are not giving yourself. And if you give yourself that love, then you're attracting that love in a partnership. Everything in this world is a direct reflection of your inner world, truly.
Yes.
And one of the things I've learned that I keep having to relearn because it keeps like amazing me all over again,
Yeah, seeing others as a mirror is always what I say. And that goes for when we feel triggered,
Yeah.
and rather than going into the blame game of this person made me XYZ, made me feel this way. The truth is, harsh truth is that no one can make you feel a certain way, but they can be a catalyst
Yeah.
to that feeling. And so seeing that reflection, as you say, seeing them as a mirror can show you, and that's one of the beautiful things about relationships of all kinds. They are intense opportunities for growth on a
Yeah.
personal and spiritual level. So this is great. Let's talk a little more about, especially for people who are just like, what are these chicks talking about? Abilities? What do are we talking about becoming like a group of Marvel characters? Like, what's happening?
Maybe.
By the way, I just saw the Marvels and it was just such a delight. It was such a great movie. And everyone had like light being type powers in that movie, which was very cool. But let's talk about different ways that we can learn to not only ground and get into that relaxed state, but also just to trust and honor what could present itself as intuition.
Yes. So there's a lot of different clairs, and I am not a master at any of them by any means. There's a couple, I don't even know if I'm saying their names right, but There is a lot of ways that a spirit will try and communicate with you, or sometimes it's just even you tapping into your higher self and receiving information. And that is clairvoyance, which is, some people think they just have incredibly overactive imaginations. But if you get like random images, random thoughts, random things like that, if you're seeing something, whether your eyes are closed or open, I will say if you are trying to like enhance your clairvoyance, starting with like meditative eyes closed to receive images is a lot more helpful. I remember having to always, if I was going to communicate with the spirit, I always went into a meditative state with eyes closed and like covered. And eventually I was able to trust the images I was getting when I was like awake and my eyes were open. But again, it's like a muscle, like anything else. These abilities are muscles, and meditation is muscles that you have to build, like any other muscle or skill in the body. So that is clairvoyance. So you'll literally be shown maybe what a spirit looks like. I remember I was communicating with somebody's mother who had passed, and they just kept showing me sunflowers because that was her flower. And that was how,
Mm.
she let them know that this is me. Then, so clairaudience, you will physically hear things. Sometimes it'll just feel like a really loud thought, and you'll just have this feeling, that's not me. Why would that random song pop into my head? Why would this happen? And a lot of times that's messages from your guides or spirits. And it's almost like, if you really think about it, you'll be like, I don't know, that thought feels different than others. Like, I didn't think that came out of nowhere. That's a lot of embracing clairaudience. And a lot of times it will be music that comes forward, or random words. I remember I had a spirit. I still don't really know what this was, honestly. Maybe one day I'll tap back into it, but somebody just kept repeating succotash in my ear. And to this day, I don't know who it was. And I saw the woman saying it, but like, she never really gave me anything else. So like, it doesn't always have to make sense. Just write everything down, because when you zoom out and you see the bigger picture, it will make sense eventually. Maybe
Mm.
not that day, maybe not that week, maybe within the year. I don't know. Um, so a really, really big one for a lot of people talk about like their gut feelings. And like, sometimes I just know, it's just my gut feeling. And that is literally a psychic ability called claircognizance. It's just that inner knowing. It's that I can't explain it, and you shouldn't have to explain it, but I just know this to be true. I just feel this in my body to be true. That is a really big psychic ability for people. It's the hardest one to trust, because a lot of people kind of like, that's one where you really start to gaslight yourself of like, is this just me thinking, or is this me feeling? And that's just kind of trial and error, trying to kind of, you know, it really helps to read for other people, because you can ask questions, you can see, what it means to them, and it really helps you build like confidence. Because reading for yourself, psychics need their own psychic. Reading for yourself is so difficult because you're so biased.
Mm.
um then there's clairsentience, which quite, or maybe I mixed those up. Which one is like the clear physical feeling? Is it
No,
sentience?
no, you're right. Clairsentience
Oh,
is
yeah.
physical. Mhm.
So this is one that you know very well. I don't, this one is not, definitely not my strongest. I've had it before, but I try not to also let, I have boundaries with certain spirits physically touching me. Unless it's really important that I feel something physical, I try and only use, clairvoyance and claircognizance and clairaudience. But some people will physically feel how people died. I've had that before, where they'll show me physical pains in the body, and I've literally had to Google before, what are these symptoms, and
Mm.
and then like realize what they were trying to show me. A lot of people will feel other people's pain. A lot of people will feel emotionally what they were going through, and that's just like, even if you walk in a room and you're like, that person's upset, I could just tell. Like, that's a psychic ability. You are using your empath and clairsentience abilities. So it's
Mhm.
little things every day that you're using that you don't realize that you're using. There's also clear taste and clear smell. So you will smell something that like isn't there, quote unquote. And that's a spirit giving you a message. You will taste something. A lot of these are all ways that spirit, and no one spirit's going to come and only use one. Like, they'll all kind of work in tandem. So it's a lot of just being open to what you're feeling, seeing, sensing, smelling. And that's why it's so important for me to take notes, because it all kind of makes sense when it's all together at the end of a session.
Mhm. Yeah, and it shows more and more the importance of being present, of,
Yes.
if we're projecting into the future or dwelling in the past, it's going to be really hard for us to receive messages in the moment.
Oh,
Um, and that's awesome. Thank you for that breakdown. And I find it really helpful too. And I hope the listeners do as well, because if they if you can relate to one, like, for example, if you see yourself as more of like a physical person like me, if you're someone who's always moved or been really aware of their body or feels any little thing, sounds like that's a good place to start. And so how can you get your body to feel more present specifically? Our spirit will always protect us in that realm, but maybe that's what we can focus on is like, am I even connected to my body right now? I've had times in Pilates sessions with clients or massage sessions with clients where quite literally I can feel energetically that they have just been like from the base of the rib cage up. Like that's what they're aware of. And their legs are on autopilot, that kind of stuff. And after a massage, they're like, oh my gosh, I feel my legs. Or, oh, I've never been sore here before. What's that about? And to me, I just find it fascinating because I can't imagine being so disconnected to a part of my body. But, there are people like that. And so if that's something that comes naturally to you, and I'm just using this as an example because it's what's in my life, that can be something for you to be like, okay, am I just moving my body or am I actually feeling the process of the movement and where the energies are going? And can I get mindful about it? Like super detailed, like, my left wrist feels tighter than my right as I'm doing this weird movement. If you're watching on YouTube, or that's interesting. My right hip feels almost numb. Like I'm not really awake. What can I do to wake that up more? Just these little tools can help us just communicate with ourself more. And I'm always saying to my coaching clients, we need to ask our body for what it needs too, because it has such an amazing voice, that it's trying to speak. So that's just an example, right? But like you said before, like, with clairaudience, do we have way too much mental activity? And so we can't even hear things, in a clear way.
And hey, I've had days where I'll have a spirit come forward and like show me that they've been trying to tell me something for days, but I'm a human who gets anxious and gets in my head, and it does block it out a little bit because I'm not in the moment and I'm not open. And so like you also like sometimes have to choose to be open and connect. It really is like having the abilities isn't a choice, but choosing to use them and be open and receive is a choice. Also, like with your kind of talking more about the physical aspect, your physical body will tell you so much about where you are emotionally and spiritually. And this is kind of why I love doing Reiki sessions and things coming up from either childhood or past incarnations. And I had it myself. Like you can heal. Sarah Breskman Cosme is a hypnotherapist, a past life hypnotherapist, and she has healed people's ailments just by regressing them to a past incarnation of where that started and why they're having this reaction, this physical, symptom. And so that is so wild to me. And I don't do it in the way that she does it at all. She's been doing it for years and she's cured people with brain cancer. It's beautiful to like research her and look into it. And I definitely recommend that if you guys are interested. But even through Reiki sessions and even myself, honestly, a lot of people in my dad's side of the family do, but I had a sciatic injury that I dealt with for years and it just kept coming back. And after a while, it wouldn't even hurt anything. It would just show up. And when I really tapped into where that was coming from, it was from my most recent past incarnation and the feeling of having everything ripped from you and also a physical ailment that she had gone through. And one of the main things that helped, it happened in layers, but I felt called to actually move back to where she was from, where the trauma had happened. And it was beautiful and painful and triggering, let me tell you, but it was something that I felt called to do. And the healing was tremendous from then on. And if you feel called to travel somewhere, to go somewhere, trust where you are led, because there are things that maybe you need to connect with, their energies you need to leave there, or whatever it is. There are certain places in the world that will awaken you. And if it's all about trusting these intuitive thoughts and like ideas that you have.
Yeah. I just love that it just continues to come down to the self-trust. And I do want to get into, just kind of, I want to probably explain because I'm like, I can come from a client's perspective on your past life readings. But before we get into that, where would you suggest that people start especially if they are maybe not even into a meditation practice yet or anything like that, where do you suggest that people start to just, tap into this trust and to start tapping into the receptivity and the intuitions? Do you have any specific tools you like to share?
Honestly, the one thing that I always say, and I would not be here without, is starting any kind of meditative self-reflective process. It doesn't have to be the traditional sitting, eyes closed meditation. However, I have a lot of people that say, I've tried meditating, it's not for me. And the thing that I always ask is, well, do you dive in and try and do a half hour at one time? Because it's a muscle like anything else.
Mhm.
Start with a minute if that's all you can do. Start with 2 minutes, start with 5 minutes, work your way up, because that is really the key in when you put yourself in that situation of, I am not thinking about anything. And if thoughts come up, that's okay. You don't have to, like, there are no rules to this and you will get where you need to be. But when you put that place in yourself, if that makes sense, of receiving, that is truly when activations start to happen. That's truly when you start to understand, when I take everything away, the anxiety from the day, the thoughts, things that are distracting me in my vision, what is left and how is it that I receive information and where am I at personally? It's very reflective of self. And that is one of the major things. But that specific way of meditating is not for everybody. A lot of people like active meditation. And I even know my wife, she is very much gardening is her meditative process. And things will just come to her while she's gardening. Sometimes when I'm driving in the car, that's when messages, spirits want to communicate the most,
Mhm.
or bike riding, or I'm running, whatever it is, there is something that just allows you to block everything else out and be in that moment and
Mhm.
not have to think. It's very monotonous tasks. And that is truly one of the biggest things I always tell clients is just build that daily for yourself or whenever you can.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like to say to my clients, since I guide them in meditations regularly, is meditation is simply observing yourself in the present moment without judgment.
Yeah.
Think of all the different things you can do with that being true. You can be dancing, eating, walking. You technically could be doing a work activity or drawing a mandala or all sorts of things where you can bring yourself into, as you said, the self-reflective state, and then really be able to go, oh, this is interesting, so I come out of it with lots of physical sensations, or I find that my mental activity is just too much. Well, the truth of the matter is that meditation is not being empty. It's
No.
But meditation is that point where you notice the thought and you bring yourself back to the present. That is meditation. So that can happen 100 times. But that moment where you're like, no, present, whew, you're meditating. And then 30 seconds later, you could be back at the thought. Great, you didn't fail. You're
No.
human. And then, but that non judgment aspect of it, I think, is so crucial.
No.
And hearing you use that term self-reflection makes me think how fascinating it is that so many people can, because so many do to me as well, say meditation is not for me. It's quite difficult for us to be with ourselves sometimes, isn't it? And that's
I
exactly what we're doing. And so if we're not even allowing ourselves to be with ourselves in the first place, that's probably a first step. How can we
yeah.
get comfortable with that?
It's very much, and for a lot of people, it's intimidating. Like I kind of remember also knowing that it was going to start something
Mm-hmm.
and not being ready for that. I was one of those people, and I remember I went to acting school, so we would start classes at Lee Strasberg of like an hour of meditation before you even got to look at a script or to do an exercise. So I was forced to meditate for a lot of my college and like post college. And I hated it. But I remember like I thought I was doing it wrong because I would start to see random images or random things would pop up. And I was like, wow, I really can't meditate because I was under this assumption that you just had to see black and like just think of nothing and see nothing. And that's actually not how it happens. Like you're meant to, especially if things are coming to you, you're meant to see, you're meant to feel, things are meant to be brought up. That's part of the process. But
Yeah,
I remember that being a big block for me because it was never just black for me.
right. Yeah, we're not supposed to be a Tibetan monk sitting on a cushion on the top of a mountain for 5 days straight
And if
fasting.
you are, and that's really, really cool, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Totally. So really, in short, you're saying that a good place for people to start is just to be with themselves
Yeah.
and just notice those moments. I always say be curious about it. Bring in your childlike curiosity rather than your judgment of yourself or that expectation of how you think it should be. Um, I'll throw in there comparison to others is just going to be so restrictive. If you see how someone meditates, just already assume that that might not be for you,
And
you
like also,
know?
yes, everybody, even if you have the same abilities, everybody's going to use them and experience them in different ways.
Yeah.
So truly not looking at somebody else and saying, oh, they're further along. Oh, they see things in this way. Am I doing it wrong? Am I not strong? Am I not,
Yeah.
like, are my abilities not strong? No, it's all about like there's no hierarchy in this. Everybody has these abilities, but it's like knowing yourself enough to say, how do I receive information? That is the most important question that to ask yourself when you're starting these abilities, and to just understand how you work,
Yeah.
and how you're open and how you receive and how you see. Do you see it? Do you hear it? Do you feel it? How do
Mhm.
I deal with things from day to day? It's really like learning and understanding yourself, which is very uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, but it's the first step towards all of
Yeah.
this.
It's the first step and it's the key,
And the key,
it's the most crucial step too, because it will, like you were saying before, it will continue. I always say, like, we never arrive, we never graduate. Life isn't linear, right? But it's the first step and it's the step we come back to, right?
yeah,
Am I with myself? Am I with myself? How's my relationship with myself today? Oh, I've been kind of crappy to myself lately. Maybe I should work on that. What are the ways that that manifests? Is that negative self-talk? Am I being hard on my body? What are all the different things that I'm doing that I can shift? And how beautiful is that spirit, God, the universe, the divine, however you want to look at it, is literally saying, I'm here, but I'm patiently waiting for you to do this.
yeah, it
And
has to
then
come
I'll
from,
be there. Yeah. And then I'll be there even more clearly. You said it has to.
it has to come from you,
Yeah.
all of it. And also, it gets stronger when you start out. You're building this muscle. So like, I want to reiterate, I have like clients that are like, I started meditating, I saw something, but then like it didn't come forward the way that I wanted it to, so I just don't know if I'm good at this. And I'm like, it will get stronger, trust me. I was not this, I still have moments where I'm not, but I was definitely not this confident and this like able to receive information when I had started. It very much took a longer time, and it very much was like trial and error. And one of the major
Yeah.
things that you're going to fight is self-doubt, but it's just also intention for me. I always ask, if I'm entering a session, if I'm entering a meditation, please allow me to connect with whatever I am meant to connect with, whatever is in the highest good. If I'm starting a meditation or if I'm starting a session to communicate with somebody's loved one, I will call them in with love. I will give them a safe space and set the intention to only receive the messages that are meant to be heard, that are
Yeah.
meant to be seen, that everybody, that they need to say, and that, their loved one needs to hear. So
Mhm.
that you kind of cut everything else out and your intention is strong, because your intention is everything.
Yeah. Well, and I love this because I always say that our spirituality should be and is customizable.
Mhm.
Not in the sense that, we change around what we believe in all the time, but things can morph. I have a firm, firm belief that your spirituality has to be incredibly personal. Otherwise, it won't make sense, right? So even though we could all be believing in the same thing, we could all see it in very different ways. And that's a beautiful way for us to come together in unity, knowing that we all are one, knowing that our higher self is spirit and it's a part of ourself. It's all connected in such a beautiful way like that. But I don't know where I was going with that. I I went on a roll. I was channeling apparently. But obviously we've been hitting the pattern of, hitting self-doubt. Oh, I was talking about the customizable sense
Yeah.
of spirituality. With that, what I can see as a roadblock is that, oh, I can customize my spirituality and therefore I can control it. No, thank you. Right. So it's about customizing in terms of opening our awareness to say, I will receive things in the way that I am supposed to. And we can't have that unless we have actual trust and faith in God's spirit, the divine universe.
Whatever it is, there's no right or
Yeah,
wrong answer. It's
exactly. But if we can cultivate that, then we can then turn it around and go, okay, hey, spirit, help me find that trust in myself as well. I'm
yeah.
connecting to you, and therefore I can connect to myself, and then I can be of service to others. And I'd love for that to just to continue to work its way, in this beautiful like torus of healing, you know?
And being open to maybe changing and being wrong at times. Like, I can't tell you how much when I thought before awakening these abilities, and even now, I feel like just being open to the world and like belief systems, it's changed so much for me. And I like to say I believe in everything and nothing, because it's just, I mean, what I thought I knew and what I'm learning now, it's just a journey. So also when you awaken these abilities, being open to being wrong and to maybe changing your mind is important as well.
Yeah, yeah. And when we start to tap into those awakenings and we open ourselves up to remember the grounding and the clearing tools, because sometimes when you have a little bit of an awakening, it comes fast and hard.
And scary.
And it can be very scary. And again, if human beings feel like they're out of control, it's a very scary thing.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, the same trust and honoring, for me, I say this a lot to clients, but also in my YouTube community of, just make sure that you have at least one person that you consider soul tribe,
Yeah.
right? So that if something like this goes down, you can't even come up with the excuse of I'm alone on this,
Yeah.
because it's not true. Even if it is something that's very unique to you, having that community is so important. Again, with that unity of us coming in, working together to raise this collective consciousness, raise our frequency, so that really and this might be a whole other rabbit hole, so that really we're just coming back home,
Yeah.
right? Because our past lives, we experienced much more in terms of abilities than we feel like we're experiencing now.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And also, sorry, I lost my place for a second. I was really grasping what you were saying. But also the ability to be able to like, it's just an openness. And also this is kind of what I love. And I have a love-hate relationship with the internet, social medias, things like that. And I was not always as open on social media. It actually took quite a lot for me to post and be open about this and honest, because my whole life I thought I was crazy, and I was like, they're going to put me away. Like, what? And that was some past life trauma as well from another lifetime.
Mhm.
But I would not be here if it wasn't for people online sharing their stories, their abilities, telling people how their abilities work. And I remember seeing all these people be so brave and talk about things, and it made me want to be brave and talk about things, and hearing their struggles and their stories about how they embrace their abilities, spirituality, the afterlife. It really helped me to say, oh, this is real. And
Yeah.
them sharing helped me. So I'm going to share, because even if one person sees it and says, oh, wow, I see a little bit of me in that, then it's worth it. And so,
Mm.
like, soul tribe is so important. And you can find your soul tribe not only in person, but you can find them online, and
Yeah.
you'll just gravitate to different healers, different people. Because I believe a lot of people right now, a lot of psychics, a lot of healers are sharing similar messages, but the way that they're saying it is attracting different kinds of people. And it's
Right.
why it's so important to share your story in your frequency, in your voice, because there's somebody who's going to need to hear it in your voice, in your
Yeah.
frequency, that they
Yeah.
might, even if the person they scroll down right below them is saying the same thing.
Right. Yeah, very important because again, we have traumas. Sometimes we can't listen to a certain voice because we're triggered, which is obviously something that we should work on, right? Ask ourselves why. But you're right. Like everyone was saying things in the exact same way, or if everyone had the same personality or the same modality that they shared, then, well, first of all, a lot of us would be out of work who are actually trying to, make our service to others also our platform and our income. But yeah, it's because, again, we're all unique, and we can say that, like we were saying before, in the way that spirit gives us messages. We can say it, I've had other episodes where I've talked about plant medicine. Plant medicine comes to the person in a very specific way that is personal to them. And that's why, you can see a lot of things across the board of, oh, these kind of visuals, whatever. But that's another beautiful thing, is that it's spirit working through Mother Earth, to come to this individual, me, Jess, who needs to be receiving messages in a slightly different way than Cairo, right? So yeah, this is awesome. As always, our talks are awesome.
Always love our talk.
Yeah. And before we close off, I want to just speak a little bit about your past life work that you do. So Cairo, I mentioned in the beginning, she offers like general readings using, oracle cards, tarot, all sorts of things. She does soul origin readings, which, can you like explain that in like 1 or 2 sentences?
Yeah. So the soul origin readings are very much who you are at a soul level before any incarnations. It's the energy. And so there's different essences that, I don't know if I can do it in 2 sentences, but there's different essences that your soul is connected to. It's different energies, and it speaks to your soul purpose. So I try and connect with your higher self and talk about maybe where it is that energy comes from, the dimensions, the places, the themes, and why they choose to incarnate, and the certain energy that they bring to each lifetime, because your lifetimes can be vastly different, but your missions and the energy that you bring is for a purpose. And that is something that carries over. So I like to really go back. It's almost like the OG past lifetime, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I know that sometimes those naturally come up for you anyway, when you're doing a past life reading, things like that. And you also do aura readings. How's my aura today?
Aura's looking beautiful. There's a lot of blue. So you're really using that throat chakra.
A lot. I've been using the throat chakra a lot today. That's for sure. And I've been doing a lot of throat chakra releasing, which we were talking about, and we're probably going to talk about in our solstice thing. We've been mentioning, you even put up some content recently about certain physical ailments, if you will, that present certain traumas from your past lives. Like you had your lower back thing. And for me, throat chakra is very much a thing. I was silenced in many different ways in previous lives when I was trying to speak my truth, or even furthermore, when I was trying to really be of service. So I don't think you've actually seen a lot of blue around me though. So that's kind of cool to see. I feel like last time I had a lot of gold.
Yeah. Golden yellow is normally what I see around you, but it's very like beautiful baby light blue.
A beautiful baby blue. I love it. And this is another skill set that you believe that people can learn, is to read auras. Yeah.
I think like reading auras is also a beautiful place to start. I remember like really wanting to connect with auras. Also, again, reading your own is really hard. I always recommend reading for family, friends, asking permission and just seeing, because that's really going to help you build your abilities. But there's so much that a color will tell you. And like colors do equate different things, but I find that when I see colors on different people, they could be the same color, but they're going to mean something a little bit different for everybody. But some people like will walk up to me in my everyday life and it's beaming. And I'm like, I can't even ignore this one. Other ones I will actually ask to tap in and say like try and, see a little bit more. Sure. It's not like in your face.
Right. Well, and just like Reiki, like sending distance Reiki, always at least intuitively asking permission, can create such a strong bond and help the energy to flow faster. So that's beautiful. And I know that when people come to you for general readings, they might have certain, specific questions. You might go on the love side, you might go on life purpose side, stuff like that. You're incredibly gifted in all these things, Cairo, but the main thing I'm still just going to say to this day is your past life work. And that's why I felt so strongly, as I was igniting you in your Reiki mastery, I will never forget actually being in the room with you during your ignitions and just getting these huge intuitive hits, which to me on a personal level was also a bit of an up leveling, which is a great thing about facilitating Reiki healing or Reiki trainings, because I feel like I can really work off of everyone's energy and I always get upgraded. It's such a beautiful thing. But I just knew, like passionately, I was like, she's going to go into past life work. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's not going to be like how other people do it. And for the listeners, I remember just saying this. And then I feel like you were already giving past life readings for like, I want to say almost a year. I might be exaggerating, where finally I was just like, yeah, I want to get one of those, you know, because you would give me intuitive hits on like maybe visuals you got during a Reiki session, but nothing was ever, super solid. And I already had a lot of really interesting, deep feelings of like, I feel strongly that I lived in this era, or I was in this movement, or XYZ. And just to tell the listeners kind of the way it works for these past life readings, again, you might also get a soul origin. But what seems to come up, and interrupt me if I'm saying any of this wrong, Cairo, but you get about 2 to 3 lives that are the ones that your higher self are like, this is what you need to be focusing on now, because there's always a theme within those 2 to 3 lives that has to do with some sort of trauma or healing that you are going through in this life, which yeah, go for it.
I'm glad you brought this up because I start every past life reading with this little like explanation of how the process and how it works. So people always say, I feel like I've had a past life. Everybody's had past incarnations. You haven't only had one, you've had hundreds, if not thousands, either here on earth or elsewhere. So the question isn't, oh, have I had a past incarnation? So there's so many that could come up, but every time I go into somebody's Akashic records and connect with their soul, I ask for the lifetime or lifetimes, and it's always 2 to 3. For the most part, 3. I do offer like now mini past life readings where we just focus on one lifetime, but I ask for the lifetimes to come up that for whatever reason, whether I know it or you know it or neither of us know it, need to be heard on a subconscious level. Either they need the most healing, they affect you the most in this life. There's energetic blocks that are kind of like coming up in this stage of your life for a certain reason. And those are the lifetimes that come up. But that doesn't mean that they're the only lifetimes that you've had, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So what I love about that is that it's not just you, going, oh, that's cool, I lived in this time. It's you provide such practical usage to your personal development now, which I love. And that is what I feel makes it different from other work. So guys, if you book with her, the cool thing is that you don't need to worry about having time, because she'll pre-record it and she sends it to you. And what's amazing about this is that it's purely channeled message. Yeah. And I love when Cairo does this, because she gets really excited and she has her journal and there's like 17 pages of things. And
the notes are so messy.
The amount of info that she channels it's boggling, guys. And it is so dense and helpful that this isn't something that you book with her once a month. You're going to get this healing, and then and I call it a healing. I meant to say a reading, but it is a healing.
Thank you.
And I don't know about your other clients. I feel like you have to do it this way. I have watched my past life video. I can't even tell you how many times.
They do.
And Spirit has told me, watch it again. There's something you're now going to hear in a different way, and it really is like thematic for a specific thread in my life that is requiring healing due to all these past lives. And they could be like way, way, way far from each other, yeah, which is really, really cool. So for those of you who are interested in knowing how that works, we're going to put all the stuff down below, and you're going to see our website, and you literally just book it. And she doesn't have to know much about you at all other than your name, really.
Yeah, name. And I always just ask for a picture, because there's something, and it could be a picture from when you were a child. It's something in the eyes that really like unlocks it for me.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate you saying that. And that means the world to me because it really is what I'm most passionate about. And I really try to get all of the information that I can. I try and get what you looked like little details. They'll kind of give me whatever they need, whatever's going to mean something to you. But that's why I really like the video aspect. And I do have clients say they go back and watch it often
Yeah.
because you're getting like a half hour, sometimes over, of just information, of just memories. And it can be really oversaturating.
It's a
And so
lot.
you
Mhm.
need to, and I find this when I get readings because I still get them because I can't read for myself because that's not a thing, um, with the doubt. But it's you miss things because there's so much energy going on and it really is oversaturating that you will connect with different parts of the reading the
Mhm.
more times you watch it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I find that even for readings that I've gotten myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So I just, she has many services, but this one in particular, I think is incredibly unique. And I'm a big fan. I'm such an astrology nerd, and that's one of the reasons why we want to do our energy talks because, I get really nerdy into that and it validates a lot of what Cairo's feeling. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm feeling that too. And
I
you'll
know
see
nothing.
at the winter solstice. What's that?
I know not a thing about astrology. I'm so bad at that. So every time I come to you, it's like everything makes sense. I'm like, wow, astrology is amazing.
Well, and it's great to have something to validate, but then again, also to not structure it so much that we're locked in a box, right? It's something that we collaborate with. But I say that because people think things like astrology or things like a tarot reading are fortune telling. And I'm always saying, like, guys, you can't get addicted to watching tarot readings all the time, to getting tarot readings all the time. Definitely, if you want one, book one with Cairo, but she will even encourage you to go on a deeper level to do something different. Or do you want to see a life coach for that? Or do
Yeah.
you want to see a therapist for that? Or, maybe you should look into other things. And I think that that's what really makes a healer a healer. It's not just, I know these things about you and here's a parlor trick,
No. Yeah. And I think I've seen this with some clients in the past where they become dependent on tarot readings and like wanting every choice they make to be affirmed. And that's not what they're for. I really believe tarot readings are they're affirming, they're a deeper conversation with what's going on underneath. I
Yeah.
don't even really like to focus on like future things. They do come up,
Right.
but it's
Right.
very much the energy that you're in now and what the focus is and how to move past what you're going through now. That's really what I like to use tarot for. And I have had clients where I've said, I think you would really benefit from this, or, like some people want to get readings like every other week or this and that. And I think that that's so oversaturating,
Yeah.
like they're not something to affirm every decision that you make. They're a deeper look at what's going on underneath and then allowing that to marinate in this next
Yeah.
stage of life. And then you can always book more. But I've even had stages of my life where I've been too dependent on tarot for myself. And I'm
Yeah.
like, sometimes you just have to be with the energy that you're in now and go based on your gut feelings and your.
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only are you seeking that external validation by doing that so often, like we were talking before, but you're really diminishing your free will,
Yeah.
right? Like you could get a reading from someone who says, like, on January of 2024, XYZ will happen. But the truth is that you can make choices for that to not happen.
There are a
We have,
million
yeah,
different.
amazing power within us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all up to you. And that's why it's good to not give your power away in that way and focus too much on the future because the next move, the future is ever changing.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh, what a beautiful way to end it. This is great. So, I'm going to put all of your info down below, your website, your social media. So those of you who aren't following her already can follow, and definitely book. Wow, it's time to stop. Definitely book a past life reading specifically, or whatever you're drawn to or aligned if you'd like to work with Cairo. And we're looking forward to doing these quarterly. energy chats and check-ins. I think it's going to really help to continue on this conversation of us trusting in our abilities. And, we're living in really, really potent energy right now. For those of you who follow me and go into my intuitive Reiki healings, it's been a broken record of you're not alone. It's potent. You're not alone. If you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you're not alone. And just being able to trust in the fact that you can transmute and you can clear and you can ground to get that clarity that you're looking for. So I know that we'll be doing a lot of talk because both Cairo and I are doing a lot of transmuting of collective energies right now. We're doing a lot of taking on, what others cannot process, and we're processing it for them. And it's a really profound job to have. Really, really profound. And I believe that we can all do it. And I believe that we are all doing it on some level. So I'm looking forward to these chats.
Me
And
too.
yeah, it's going to be great. And yeah, Kyra, do you have any last words for folks? Like any just bit of advice in the world that we're living in right now? Just maybe one thing.
Be open to the highest possibility of good. See the good in things, because you can choose to see the bad, but if truly the external world is a reflection of your internal world, if you focus on that good, that's what you're putting into the world, and you're manifesting even more positivity and good, and not focusing on the negative.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining, Cairo. It was so great to hear your story, especially. And, for those who follow you, I think it's always a good reminder for them to know that you're human.
Oh, yeah. Like
And
I've
that's
never
really important.
spoken about like the trials and the turning it off and that. So it feels really nice to have a place to talk about that. And I am so appreciative of you having me on your podcast. This is,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be on one. And
Yeah.
also, it feels kind of surreal that something that felt like a curse that I hated for so long has become the thing that I'm most grateful for. And
Mhm.
to communicate with you about it and chat about it is just a dream that I could have never dreamed of.
I
So
love that. I'm so glad that, I was able to provide a platform for you to do that. And I know that this talk is going to help a lot of people. So thank you again. And for all of you beautiful souls, I honor everything that you are and everything you're going to do. And I hope you have a balanced rest of your day.